Welcome to our master classroom here at IMS. We're here with the amazing Moon Boots. Please put your hands together. So yeah, as you probably know, he's worked on some amazing tracks, including one of the songs of the summer in 2013, Love Strong, and an amazing remix from Churches, which we're going to go through today. But before we get into all that exciting stuff, I just want to ask you about your background and how you started getting into music, and specifically electronic music.
I mean, I guess if I were to say I started in music, it was piano. I started when I was very young playing classical piano. And then sort of midway through high school, I got into keyboards and actually started producing somewhat later. But, at the time, things like, a Radiohead, Kid A and Amnesiac, Pink Floyd, some Jay Dilla things for Tribe Called Quest, and then electronic music from, at first people like, Daft Punk, Chemical Brothers, Aphex Twin, the kind of people that you could buy albums for back when you had to buy CDs. And then later on, I got influenced into production from people, sort of classic French house, Alan Braxton, Fred Falk, Lifelike, Creedmoor Records, Metro area, things like Felix the House Cat, the Milo album. That was all kind of in the air right when I decided, hey, wait, maybe I can give this a shot.
So what were your first ventures into that world? Was it through software, hardware? Or?
It was definitely through software. It was with Ableton, but at the time, I was playing a lot of synthesizers. I was playing in bands, playing jazz, all kinds of things, and then production sort of came later.
Right. So it's very much fueled by a kind of music theory background.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I guess that helps you a lot in your productions.
It does. It does. It's interesting because some people, I think, if you don't know theory, you can arrive at certain things just kind of intuitively. That the theory can kind of stop you from doing, but most of the time I don't think in terms of theory, I think in terms of chords and, sort of experimenting and jamming and things like that.
Sure, and were you DJing at the time, or did DJing come later?
It started kind of simultaneously, yeah. Okay. Just as I was, getting into, dance music and the history of dance music, it's a natural thing to want to DJ at the same time. And I moved from, I was in college in New Jersey, and I moved to Chicago, and I was really inspired by the DJ culture there, just house music and, electro was happening at the time, but I was also getting into, the history of disco and Chicago house music. And so, it was a really great place to start DJing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what were those first tracks like? You had Ableton, and you were just using soft synths, I guess, and putting samples together.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
They're pretty terrible. Yeah. No, they weren't that bad. But I played in a band for a while too. I started the Moon Boots project 2.5 years ago. That was sort of my first venture into producing my own music, start to finish on my own. Before that, I'd work with my bandmates, or I'd do little sketches, but not take them to that, polished, finished level.
Sure. What is your approach when you are remixing? I mean, do you listen for something that you hear in the vocal, or do you hear, when someone label sends you something, you think, this is the one I want to remix, or this is, what decides that for you? It's a combination of things. It does come down to the vocal. That's really the only thing I listen to. If I like the vocal and I feel like I can make something with it, then after that, maybe I go through the parts and say, oh, there's, a nice percussion loop or a nice synth sound or something, but that's way, way down the line. It's all about the vocal. Sure.
And it helps for me too if it's in, if the original song's in a different style of music, because if it's, I don't like remixing club songs, for instance. If something's already a club song, I'd rather not remix it. I'd rather take something that's pop or indie or something like that. And I know I've annoyed a lot of my producer friends that way, who ask, oh, remix this song. And I'm like,
Maybe, but I don't know.
I guess, I mean, before we started this masterclass, we were talking about French Express, which is a label you're a big part of,
Yeah.
and the kind of tradition there of free downloads, and you know, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about why you wanted to have a work with a label that doesn't really sell music. Do you think that's, you know, do you think there is any point in selling music anymore, or is it just for more of a reach thing, or?
You know, I think there is. You know, I think if you're selling records, I mean, certainly you're not going to give them away for free. I think if you're making music that's based on samples, it's kind of a touchy area for me. You know, if it has original vocals, then sure, you should sell it. At the end of the day, you know, with French Express, it's, you know, we wanted to just get our music in the hands of fans, and that was what free downloads were about, you know? So, you know, I'm not trying to say there's any sort of moral aspect to it or anything like that. It's more about, it worked for us, you know, it's a way of, you know, showing the fans their our appreciation. We finish something, in a lot of cases, I get the master, and I put it up for free download that same week, sometimes that same day. And with most labels, it's, you know, you get a master, and then you give it to a promo person, you give it to a distributor, you wait 2 months, you wait to see which DJs are going to play it. And I honestly don't have the patience for that most of the time.
Yeah, so it is
when
just
I finish
a case
it,
of,
I want it to be out.
Yeah, so maybe we could just start by taking a look at the remix and how you put it together.
Sure. I could play a little snippet of the original demo, too. Doesn't even have a bass line in this version yet. The snare is absolutely terrible too.
So it's still very much based around that piano and...
Exactly. Actually, since I saved over that render, I was looking for it in vain last night, I actually, you know, I decided to try out something different, which would be to show on the keyboard some different ways where I could have written it. And I don't even know if these were in the original demos. And some of these chord progressions I actually kind of like and may use in something else. But I thought it would be fun to show that. So this is actually just a blank project I can show you. With just the vocal and a kick drum, a clap, a little bit of a shaker loop, and yeah, just these vocals. So let me arm this.
And
I'll give you some.
That's the M1, Korg M1.
Yeah, this is a sound I made with the M1. That it's a big part of the finished remix, and it's just this really nice, lush vocal choir. So here's an alternate reimagining of the remix.
The kind of out of noise, chopped up, sampled vocal part. How did you actually make that? Was that just put it into a sampler, replayed it?
Yeah, it was a combination of well, yeah, it was all resampled, and I chopped up both the original sounds and also I recorded each of those sounds through a really long reverb, and then I would both sample that and then sample the reverse of that. So it gives it this sound right here, you can see.
So
you can even hear the little reverse swipe on it. And then there's another layer here that's just also recorded sounds from a very long reverb that are then looped and chorused and affected and panned and things like that. So actually the first layers that come in are that sort of ambient reverb swell. These resampled reverb vocals. This is a percussion loop I chopped up from a 90s sample disc I found. So just little things like that to give it a little extra flavor. There's a light side chain on it to kind of give it a little bit of bounce.
The Fab Filter plugins, you seem to use those a lot, so.
I like them. They're very easy and straightforward to use. I think, you know, the Fab Filter equalizer, it's really nice for just subtracting and cutting things. If you want to boost treble, or you want to boost bass, I'll use a different EQ. But for just kind of surgical, just chopping things up,
yeah,
it's really nice and easy.
So from the original version you played us, the drums kind of changed in this one, the snare changed and stuff. So
oh yeah,
where do you get your samples from when you're making kicks and snares? And have you made them already and layer things and just drag them in, or?
No, I use battery, and so I, for instance, on this one's kind of interesting because you know, tons of sample libraries, and I'll pick through them and put all my favorite samples into a folder, and then I'll put that folder into battery. But then I also, if I hear a song where I really like one of the drum sounds, and it's almost always at the beginning of a song where you get an isolated drum hit with no tail on it, I'll just go ahead and sample that. And actually on this, the kick that I ended up using is chopped up from a Scream track. So that's where.
Is that something you do a lot across all of your tracks? You just go through sample libraries, pick stuff, layer things, chop them up, and.
Yeah. You find ways to compress and shape them together to make it all gel.
Sure.
Yeah.
So one of the things about this track is the bass line is essentially just a sine wave, kind of like a long sine wave. How did you create the movement within the track so that didn't become very static?
You know, one of the things that helped on this track is by syncopating the bass and the kick together. And so the bass actually comes from Moog Voyager. And as you can see, when you record from an analog synth, you have to be very careful about how you record it. It'll actually hit the same notes differently each time. So I'd run through it, and then I'd see, this is very boring and very tedious, but it's something you have to do. You know, it would hit certain notes better one time through, and then I'd have to go through and literally replace each note with the one. That's why there's all this crazy color coding on here. And I affected it to almost sound like an electric bass.
So that's the Moog Voyager, just playing that bass line, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the ambience comes from the long delays and reverbs you were talking about, and because there's not actually that much happening, it's quite a sparse mix.
Yeah.
So much is that, because you were talking about delays and reverbs and stuff like that. Is that something you do across all your music?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just automate things and...
Yeah, I automate things, and I also like to record things. So, for instance, when you hear this bell sound here, there's a layer that's it's recorded and on top of the... So then I'm side chaining this delay trail and automating that. There's things with the white noise I like to do with a lot. And the reverb trails on the claps. So those are all pre-recorded. Definitely have to say a big part of my sound for the past year has been, let me see, which is actually linked up to it right now. This reverb right here is absolutely incredible. I use it multiple times on every track that I make, and I record sounds from it. It can do very sort of high-pitched feedback sounds. It's just a really useful tool to create weird noises because, white noise to me is boring. What the sounds that you can get from this are very cool.
Yeah, it's a classic. I mean, you've used in UID. I mean, is there any other plugins in UID that are on all your tracks, like staples for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always getting more plugins. So now, there's a compressor I use all the time now. I didn't have when I'd made this track. And that's a funny thing. You start with a couple UAD plugins, and then you get really addicted, and then all of a sudden it's like you can't do anything without it. It's kind of annoying.
I just wanted to ask you a couple of things about your master channel and the stuff that you like to process through. I mean, do you usually put a compressor limiter on the master channel to work to at least, and then take it off at the end, or?
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It helps you, hear something that's closer to the finished product, and also it, allows you to hear certain frequencies more clearly, certain dynamic relationships more clearly. You could have something that's completely uncompressed, unlimited, and then you start throwing things on the master channel, and everything sounds nuts, terrible. And then you just end up spending twice as much time trying to catch up.
Across the whole label, the production quality is so high. Do you kind of send things to each other and say, what do you think of this?
Always, yeah. I mean, especially, I don't know if I could finish a track without sending it to Perseus. That would be a very novel thing for me. And this is after 2.5 years of working together. I send everything to him. There's some songs where he's heard 20 versions.
Yeah.
And the other guys too, I like to waste their time as well. It's very tough to make this stuff in a vacuum, and we feed off of each other. We give each other ideas. We'll sometimes even exchange samples. We'll exchange drum sounds, plugins. We'll say, oh, you should check this out, check this out. It makes a huge difference.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to say thanks so much for showing us the inside of this track, because I absolutely love this remix.
Oh,
it's amazing.
thank you.
And please put your hands together for Moon Boot.